This next fly you'll really enjoy tying, simply because it's so dead easy to tie. It's the CDC loop wing or bubble wing Caddis. Now, because it's so easy to tie, don't be fooled into thinking that it's going to be a rubbish pattern. It's actually very, very deadly. It's been out now, I would say, several years. It's been done in one or two fly fishing magazines. I think the original idea must have come from the continent. It's the old idea of looping over the CDC plumes to make a nice Caddis wing profile. I tie it to copy our granum. I use quite small sizes, 16s and 14s, to copy our granum hatch, which happens mid to late April, so I've about 3 weeks to wait. However, you can tie it to match any of the caddises, right down to micro caddis up to the huge cinnamon sedges. It's a 2 material fly. All you need is a packet of nice jumbo CDC plumes and a hackle. Because it's CDC, you don't have to bother with any fly floatant. Just tie the fly, stick it in your box and whop it on the water and watch the trout come up and take it. It's a brilliant fish catcher. I'm going to tie it to copy our granum. So I'm tying it on a size 14, one of the new Partridge show hold upwing dries. Hooking the vise. I'm also using Moser Power Silk. You could use spiderweb if you wanted. Pull the thread through till it nearly disappears. Wrap forward to the eye and then come back on yourself. And that way you get no waste. With your thread now hanging just at the bend of the hook, right on the bend, get your 2 CDC plumes. These from Niche I particularly like because they're very, very plump, excellent quality, all the same size. They're almost like jumbo CDCs. Look at those two that just came out. Perfect matching CDC plumes. They must have been pulled off at the same time from the same spot on the duck. Tips aligned, hold the butt. They've got a slight curvature to them, so offer them in, concave side uppermost, stroke the fibres forward, coax them forward. Now on this size 14, 2 feathers is ample. If I were tying a 12, I'd probably use 3. On a 10, I might use 3 as well, or even 4. Hold the butts like that. Cord up your thread. Circle round with a soft wrap. Drag through to bundle all the fibres. Make sure the tips stay on top. And if you see the tips separate like that, just stroke them back again. You must have these in correctly, and it sometimes pays to get on with it like that. Don't dawdle. Just do that one more time. You've got to have the feather laying absolutely flat. If it twists, just take it out and do that bit again. That's better. And when the tips have just gone past the eye, you can put more pressure on. And now let go of the butts, and if the butts lay like that, you've got it. All the fibres have been bundled up. They're laying in a nice upward curve, and the two butts there and there are laying one exactly over the other. If they're off to one side or feathers twisted, take them off. Do what I did. Do it as many times as you like until you get them to lay exactly like that. And then a little bit more tension, then gather those tips down. Don't matter if any flared out like that, don't worry. So now tie my hackle, and I like this nice dark barred grizzle because I'm tying this pattern to copy a granum, and as you know the granum's a dark caddis. Separate one out, don't pluck it off the pelt, lift it up on the underside, and I want a barbule length, the fibre length, that's just about level with the hook point, and that's just a tad too long. So which means I've got to come down and find a smaller one yet. So try this one. And that one's not so far off. Take the hackle out. And now offer the hackle into position. Just sit it right there. Good side towards the head of the fly. Keep the hackle on its edge. Just figure of 8 round it to keep it on its edge. And now tie the butt down also. And come up to about the 3/4 position. And I'll just slip my blade in and knock that bit of stem off. In fact, the stem's almost disappeared. Got it. And now you're ready to wind on the hackle. Before you wind the hackle on though, in the interest of strength, just get your thin head cement and with your dubbing needle just run a bead of head cement along the shank, just moistening the shank. Because now when I wind the hackle in on top of that moistened shank, it will help to make it a very durable fly. So while the cement is still wet on the hook shank, hook on my hackle pliers, and if you're not quite at the base of the wing, make your first turn backwards like I've just done, and now I wind on. And I'm using my rotary, but it's only because it's close to hand. And don't make it too closely hackled. You must leave yourself enough hackle to wind on at the head of the fly, so don't use it all up. And when you get to there, tie off. I've about 3/4 inch of hackle left. Tie off, tie off. If you want, you can leave it hanging like that, but some people find that annoying, these two clattering together, so I just unclip my hackle pliers and leave the tip of hackle there for clipping onto later. Now take your scissors and just look at it from the side and just make a sloping cut on top at about 15 degrees. That's more or less copying the profile of the wing, so you're making like an under foundation for the wing. Now pick your dubbing needle up, take the two butts of the hackle together, and I come with my dubbing needle in there. I fold the feather over my dubbing needle, and I run the dubbing needle up and down there a few times, holding the feather very tight, holding the two CDC plumes tight. And what that does, that starts a bend going. That puts a nice curve in it. So now I'll measure my wing length off. Just let it overhang by about, from the bend, past the bend of the hook by about 1/8 of an inch. Slide the dubbing needle out. Grip there. Pinch and loop. And tie the stem down. And make sure the stems stay on top. If they move, just pull them back. Don't be afraid of it, just pull it back on line. That stem has got to stay, those two stems have got to stay on top. Otherwise it'll cant your wing off at an angle. And there's your nice bubble wing. Now I take my scissors, crop off, crop off. One more streak of head cement now, and that goes on the base of that wing where I've tied it off. It gives a nice strengthening to this hackle that's going on. So now I've got to take my thread now to the eye, to the shoulders of the eye, ready to catch this hackle down. So take my thread forwards, hook on your hackle pliers, and now just go in one move back to the base of the wing, and now wind all the way over this wet tying thread. Come forwards all the way to the hanging thread. Bring the thread over and catch down that tip. Snip off the waist. Snip off any little bits that are sticking forward. And I aren't even bothering on this to put antenna. Doesn't matter, 2 hooks to the fish at all. 2 or 3 turns. Come straight round with 2-finger whip finish. All that's been done on wet head cement, so that hackle is not only wrapped and held down, it's nicely cemented to the underbase. Steady your hand, off with your thread, and if those 2 or 3 little fibres bother you, just knock them off. If you find when you finish the fly, the hackle there tends to be just a tad too long, then what I do is I just put a little flat wheelbase there. Just cut it level with the hook point. If you've selected the right hackle, there'll be no need to do this. So I look across there and just make a little flat base. And then finally, last job of all, touch more of head cement. You've got to seal now your thread wraps, of course. So just touch that with a tiny whisker of head cement. Toddle through there, nice and clear. And that's my granum. It's a brilliant little pattern. This should now sit absolutely flat on the water surface. Very durable, quite realistic when it's on the water. So that's your CDC loop wing or bubble wing caddis. And you know, up to a sedge with a wing length of 7/8 of an inch long, you can still use the same prototypical pattern. It's a very, very effective fly.